Welcome to LiveTALK by USPAACC, the U.S. Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce Education Foundation, and welcome to Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. A little history. In 1979, President Carter issued a proclamation declaring the first week of May as Asian American Heritage Week. Then in 1990, President H.W. Bush signed a bill that extended the week to a month. Congress then passed the law unanimously, proclaiming May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Why May, you may ask? That was the month the first transcontinental railroad was completed. That is a project that took more than 20,000 Chinese workers. Since then, a lot has happened. Asian Americans have expanded their population, their influence, and therefore their contributions to America. Like other Americans, we have helped to make America the way the world it is today. The best in the world, the beacon, like on the hill, like the lighthouse floating in the ocean, where everybody look to us to grab and get on shore. Our members are in all aspects of American life, from the low tech to middle tech to the medical tech, biotech, and high tech. And we are here to talk about Asian American businesses working with major corporations and financial institutions. Joining me today is Ms. Vonshe Jenkins, Senior Vice President at the Bank of America, the head of supply diversity and responsible sourcing, leading a team that develops and delivers business strategies that lead the company's efforts in increasing opportunities for diverse businesses, that is minorities, Asian, Black, Hispanic, Native Americans, women, veteran, LGBT, and disabled-owned businesses to participate in the Bank of America's competitive sourcing and procurement processes. Welcome, Vonshe.
Thank you, Susan. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are going to have a fireside chat. That means I get to ask you questions and sit back and listen to your answers.
That sounds great.
That's the easiest job for me. So question one, Vonshe, can you tell us more about the Bank of America Supply Diversity Program, when it began, how it works, how are suppliers selected, etc.?
I'm more than happy to. And I have to be honest, I count myself lucky to have the opportunity in my career to govern such amazing work. Can you believe it? Our journey started 32 years ago. We joined the NMSDC, the National Minority Supplier Development Council, in 1989. So we were an early member. And then in 1990 is when we built and started our intentional program to drive inclusion in our supply chain. And it was called the Minority Business Development Initiative. And Hugh McCall, our former CEO, started that work with Dorothy Brothers, who is still a legend in the world of supplier diversity today. If we fast forward a little bit, in 1990, that's when we committed and increased our commitment to diverse vendor inclusion. But that's also when we developed and implemented the policies that govern our program today. One of them being our Tier 2 program, where majority-owned businesses must commit to spending with diverse businesses on our behalf. And so that was great. And I think also during that time, we were founding members of WeBank. And so we continue to be proud of that. And then over the years, we continued to expand what diversity in our program looked like, including disabled-owned vendors, veteran-owned vendors, LGBTQ+ owned vendors. And I'm super proud to say that in 2014, we became the 19th member and the first financial institution inducted into the $1 billion roundtable. Every year, we spend close to $2 billion with diverse businesses. And in addition to spend and penetration in our supply chain, my team also focuses on providing mentorship and development opportunities to diverse vendors across the board. So it is definitely a strategic imperative for our company.
Well, great. Well, now that you talk about years, it was in 1999 that the USPAACC first began involved with the Bank of America.
Wow.
Yes. And I went to my files in preparation for today's chat. And I can tell you that at that time, about those years, we started to work with Catherine Besant.
Wow.
And then later we worked with Dorothy Brothers. And I remember Dorothy, at one time when I first began to talk to her, I said, Dorothy, come and take a look at us. Come to our conference and our annual event and take a look at who we are. She said, oh, no, I don't want to go there and see kids running around and grandmothers. I said, no, you're not going to see grandmothers and young kids. You're going to see real adults, people who are actually in business. So very quickly going through the Bank of America file, 1999, we began our relationship with the Bank of America. And then Catherine Besant and Dorothy Brothers were the two big names I pulled out from my files.
Yeah, and they're still amazing women, amazing, just big names today, legends there. So long history, long relationship.
Indeed. And you talk about the $1 Billion Roundtable. It's an organization that I know that consists of members who have achieved spending $1 billion a year with minority first at the beginning, and then they added women, and then LGBT, disabled, and veterans to the suppliers that the company will contract with a year, at least $1 billion a year. And I've been talking about that with other corporations who would never buy that much. Not like a Bank of America, you have a big bandwidth, you have big institution buy a lot. So we're trying to, we're launching an event, a program called Supplier Diversity Champions, which will also recognize company, but they are not the $1 billion spend on minority diverse companies. So this is all good to encourage companies to develop and intentional about getting the diverse suppliers into the door. At least train them, mentor them, and encourage them to be innovative and to look at you as a customer, your interests first. So we're singing from the same hymn here.
And Susan, I'm so glad that you brought that up because you're right on point. I think the other thing that some folks may not know about the $1 Billion Roundtable is that we're also a think tank, and we think about and support other corporations on their journey. Into fortifying their supplier diversity programs. It's really about how can you maximize this work and be as inclusive as possible. So, what you all are doing is right in line to that whole methodology.
Yeah. Well, I was having a conversation with one of the father of supply diversity, Ralph Moore from Chicago.
Yes.
I invited him to be interviewed by the Federal Communications Commission about how to reach out to the diverse suppliers so they can benefit from the $42.25 billion of infrastructure rebuilding plan that the Congress has earmarked the money for the underserved community. And he was talking about that, the need to nurture more and give more opportunities for the suppliers who are waiting in waiting. I think the President Biden's IIJA, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, will truly be opening more doors for my constituents and those are the African American, Hispanic, and Native American women, disabled, and veterans. So wonderful. Let me go to question 2, Vonshe. Share about yours and the Bank of America's experiences with the Pan-Asian American AAPI suppliers. What categories of suppliers do you see them focus on, or they are not concentrated in any particular industry?
So, first let me back up a little bit and just say thank you for always making the right connections between your constituents and all of the opportunities that happen in the public and private sector. And I think, one way that we engage with Asian American and Asia Pacific American vendors is through your organization. And like you mentioned before, having this long history together, over 20 years of a partnership, has been so valuable, so collaborative. And we have to congratulate you and say that we're excited to see you continue to contribute to what's happening in the economy. And we're excited to continue to contribute to the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I want to acknowledge before we move on is the fact that the growth, especially in our communities of your organization, is also phenomenal. Your establishment of regional chapters from the west to the east has been great. Making that connection, driving deeper connections with the Asian American, Asia Pacific American business community is a great thing. And so for us, Asian American, Asia Pacific American suppliers are a huge value. They're valuable to our supply chain, and they represent in the double digits of our Tier 1 program across many categories. And I would feel, I didn't want to single one category out, because what we've seen is these vendors can service us in so many categories at so many levels. And in addition to that, we also have a Bank of America small and diverse business scholarship fund. And we've had this scholarship program, I would say, since 2014. And what it does is it provides capacity building, Ivy League education to diverse business owners. And some of our diverse business owners have gone to programs at Harvard, Tuck, Stanford. So it's the real deal. And so since we established it in 2014, I think we provided over $2.5 million in grants through the scholarship fund. And I think that equates to about 400 scholarships. But when I was looking at the data, Asian American, Asian Pacific American owned companies have been the third highest represented ethnicity to receive these scholarships. Mm-hmm. So in addition to participating in our supply chain, we love partnering in order to provide hopefully some help in for vendors to grow their business.
Well, that's very nice. That's very important. Asian American tend to have a higher number because they are, in addition to being curious, they want to learn because they want to make sure that they measure up to the expectation of companies like yours. It's not easy to get up to your level, not easy to get to have FaceTime with you, Vonshe. It's just like hitting the jackpot when they get to talk to you. It is. They tell me that, and they thank me for it. And I say, well, don't thank me. Thank yourself for working hard and creating a real resume of your company that deserves their attention. And we could be an advocate for you. We can sit by the side and become the accompanying instrument to play some music, background music, so that they feel like listening to you, but it is all on you, so they know that. And to your point about what we do, we have to work hard because we need to convince you and make sure that you can trust us and you believe in what we tell, and we will always underpromise and try to overperform, so that we would never be short of what we say. Oh yeah, we can do that. We rather say, oh, you did very well, than we say, well, you're just about two notches short, so we don't want that. We are already short. Asian tend to be shorter than the others. All right, well, jokes aside, let me go to the question. Did COVID-19 change the way the Bank of America conducts its business, especially purchasing activities, and how it selects suppliers? Does it change at all?
Absolutely. I don't know how you feel, but I definitely feel that this pandemic was this huge stress test for all supply chains. I mean, it really helped us to figure out how do we navigate against the weight of something like a global pandemic. And to be honest with you, we're still feeling it. I mean, it's still going on. And, you know, for us at Bank of America, I mean, one of the things that I remember that I was like, whoa, is overnight we had to figure out how to enable thousands of people to work from home. Mm-hmm. And now we're getting thousands of people back into the office. I mean, that's a seismic shift for a company of our size. And at that time, especially when the pandemic had first started, in months into it, for those who stayed in the office and had to service our customers, we had to think about ways to protect them. And a lot happened in our supply chain. You know, one, I mean, just thinking about the infrastructure, we had to update and upgrade capacity for our data centers, our data servers. We were huge purchasers of PPE, and we continue to be. We needed to increase our call center staff, and some of our call centers are outsourced. So we needed more staff to service our clients who couldn't come into our financial centers. We needed to increase purchases of plastic cards to support the increase of unemployment claims that were happening across the U.S. And, you know, the other thing that, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge is through all of that, we had to continue to fortify our risk posture. And so if we had to fortify our risk posture, our suppliers did too. Because at the end of the day, you gotta protect your customers and your clients. And so with all of the examples that I listed, and there are many more that we don't have time for, you know, it was a delight to see so many of our diverse suppliers in our supply chain step up and fill in the gaps, help us fill in the holes so that we did not miss a beat. And I think that, you know, for many of us in supply chain, we realized, and it just, again, doubled down on the fact that diverse vendors are critical to what we do and how we deliver to our customers, our clients, our employees, our communities, all of our key stakeholders.
Great. The next question, I'm going to combine that, the question on supply diversity and certification into one, Vonshe. I remember when I first learned about it was when I was invited by MNSCC's Midwest regional chapter and to go to Cleveland, Ohio, and be the keynote speaker for the lunch. And that was in the early 1990s. And I did not know about MNSCC, did not know about minority business contracting in this commercial sector. I only knew about federal contracting in the federal 8A program. And of course, the Minority Business Development Program has since then evolved into supply diversity because we have women in it, we have LGBT in it, we have disabled, we have veterans. So minority development program, it doesn't speak to that, I guess. And the name diversity is more encompassing. So, and then there goes with also the concept of certification. Do you know that USPAACC started our certification program in 1998?
Wow.
Yes, Vonshe.
Those 90s, those were the times, right?
Yeah, we did not know about it. It was I think it was General Motors who called me one day and called and said, "Do you certify?" I said, "No." I said, "I think you should certify," because that was a time when the American companies were going to Asia. It was the Pacific era. Going to Asia, they wanted to find more Asian Americans to as vendors, and they can also utilize them locally in America. And at the same time, the U.S. Census was beginning to count for the Census 2000. So I got both the government coming to me asking us to help them reach out to the Asian American businesses,
That's
and
right.
then corporation want to ask us to do that. So we are led into that path. So anyway, so the question I have is that what would you say is the value and the role of supply diversity in the post-pandemic world? Hopefully, we're going to be in the post-pandemic world soon. Has it diminished, or did it become more relevant and important in this world? Has the pandemic actually changed how the program worked, and how does certification play in this marketplace?
Yeah, and I think that all goes together so nicely. So a little bit to unpack there. One, I would say post-pandemic, but then also we are still in this heightened focus of racial equality, and all of that came together over these last 2 years. I mean, it was a serious last 2 years. I would say all of that and other things amplified the importance of supplier diversity, diverse vendor inclusion in supply chains, because I think what companies really kind of have this aha moment is, yeah, supplier diversity is this huge gateway to economic mobility and impact. It's not like we didn't know it before, but we saw the direct connection in neon lights during this time, and we still do. And I think, we saw that with so many corporations making commitments to support diverse owned businesses, but not only with the products and their products and services or philanthropy, but through their supply chain. They've made commitments to increase their spending with diverse vendors in their supply chain because they recognize the benefit and the impact. And the other thing that we can't lose sight of is during this time, there was a heavier reliance on technology to communicate and bring people together. And so this increased, information security concerns, which has caused many supply chain management systems and processes to be revamped and to change altogether. And it required our diverse suppliers to do the same. So in a nutshell, for that piece, yes, diverse supplier diversity programs have been amplified and doubled down on. And then two, when I think about how overall supply chains have changed and where our diverse suppliers need to continue to plug in is with information security and with technology. And I know that's been something that we've talked about over the years, and the value that your suppliers bring to the table. When I think about certification, I think about a few things. So corporations have committed to spending more with diverse vendors in their supply chain. The government has committed to spending more. So certification, just at its core, is crucial because it helps those entities feel confident that we're doing business with who you say you are, just at the baseline. But there's more to it. When a diverse supplier is certified by an organization like yours, NMSDC, WeBank, Disability In, Novova, NGLCC,
USPAACC.
USPAACC, yes. They are brought into a network. And that network is critical to enabling their success. With these networks, in partnership with these organizations, there's mentorship, there's capacity building, there's education, there's connection to opportunities. And you were just talking about the connections that you're constantly making between your constituents and all of the opportunities, out there. And then also they have access to each other. And we can't forget that. It is so important that our diverse businesses have access to each other. And I know for us as a corporation, it's your guys' organizations, it's the USPAACC, it's the other organizations that I named. When we are searching for vendors for opportunities, we go to our partners.
Yeah.
You are the first folks we go to say, hey, we have a need. Here's what we're looking for. Can you provide a list of certified diverse vendors. And so you're our gateway to diverse vendors. And so I think certification and the certification organizations that we support are critical to this ecosystem.
So true, Vonshe. Last year in November, we had our national conference, part 2, because COVID-19, we had to bifurcate our conference into two parts. Part 1 was presented in June. Part 2 was presented in November. That was good because that gave us a chance to bring all the 9 certification organizations together: NMSCC, WeBank, LGBT Chamber of Commerce, Disability in Navoba, and NVDTC, USPAACC, and now the US Black Chamber of Commerce.
That's right.
Helped by American Express, its own certification for Black-owned companies. So we and also We Connect, which international, which certify companies owned by women outside of the country, not Americans, but women-owned businesses outside of the country. All of them came together and had a wonderful 90-minute virtual conference panel. And that's the whole idea. We talked about why is, to us, these organizations, certification is important. What is the ROI of supply diversity to corporations? And the WeBank's president, Pam, came out of corporate America, Pfizer, and she was able to give us her experience as a former corporate executive in procurement. So it was great. And the conclusion was, as you said, all networks come together and collaborate, share, because we have found our members, they do sometimes duplicate, but that's okay. For Asian Americans, for example, they join MSDC and they're women, they join WeBank, but they still come back to US because it is a home away from home for them.
Yes.
Like the Chinese always go to Chinatown to have their Chinese food. The Filipinos go to Manila town, and the Koreans go to K-town, and the Japanese go to J-town. And it's a way for them to be able to grab the Chinese newspaper, Korean newspaper, Filipino news, and catch up for the news from home country. So Vonshe, you really know your community that you work in, which is this diverse community, very well. I must compliment you. This chat with you give me more inside look into who you are and what you know. It's wonderful to get to know you better through this public forum.
Oh, thank you.
So this is the last question. What would be the one thing that you tell the Pan-Asian American AAPI suppliers that they should bear in mind when they begin to seek to do business with major financial institutions like the Bank of America?
I think that's a great question. And, I'm going to have real talk with you, because anytime that I'm talking with a potential diverse vendor, I have real talk with them. And, the reality is you have to remember that you're not the only one competing with for business. There are thousands of diverse vendors out there that want to do business in corporate supply chains, that reach out, that are eager and ready. And so you got to remember that. And once you remember that, I have 2 key pieces of advice. First, know your customer. We love when a potential supplier has done the groundwork. They've done the research ahead of time. They ask questions so that they understand the areas of focus or nuances with our company, or even within our industry. Financial services is a huge industry. An example of that is, we operate in a highly regulated environment across the globe. And when vendors come and they want to do business with us and they understand that, the conversation looks completely different. The second piece of advice I would say is clearly articulate why you are the best choice. You'd be surprised how simple articulation moves mountains. Tell us what differentiates you. Tell us what your niche area of expertise are. Help us to understand what makes your company special. Because again, we may have a roster of companies that we're looking at, and we need to understand the differentiator to make the right choice. So for vendors to be able to simply articulate that, get away from the jargon. That happens in later conversations when you want to get into technical talk and things like that. But there's so many more conversations that happen in order just to get you included in the competitive bid process. You got to be able to tell that story clearly and succinctly.
Well, great, Vonshe. Thank you so much. And may I also add that if you want to meet the Bank of America folks, an opportunity, come to USPAACC's conference within May. That's right. Bank of America will be there, and they will be there to meet you if you want to have FaceTime with them. But you have to register. You have to make appointments, and there's still time for you to do so. Our conference celebration, Business Plus Procurement Conference. And the theme this year is Synergy Forward.
Great thing.
Synergy Forward. It will be held, again, May 25 to 27 at the Grand Hyatt, Washington, in Washington, D.C. Go to www.USP, like Paul, AACC.com. You can find all the details, all the speakers, all the very, very important session that you have to watch to be there. I say watch because for 2 years we have been watching through Zoom. But this time, folks, it is in person. You can actually see people eyeball to eyeball and knock elbows, okay? And be there. Go to the website and register. And here, Vonshe, thank you so much again for spending time with us. This is like an annual thing for you and me to speak online now, today, for the third time since COVID hit us. Hopefully next year we'll have you in person. We had you in person in 2019 when we had a conference in Houston, remember?
Yes, what a great time.
Right. And you had your luncheon there, you had your executive speaking there, and you were there. It was wonderful. We're looking for the next year, and then suddenly we have to revert to remote working. But it was great. It was great. Just we didn't miss a beat at all. And once again, Vonshe, thanks so much for your generosity, the graceful way with which you talk to us, our audience. And I look forward to talking to you again and see you in person very soon. And to the audience, that's right. And to the audience, please help me thank Vonshe Jenkins, the Senior VP for Supply Diversity and head of Supply Diversity at the Bank of America, without whom we would not have this beautiful program today. Bye for now. I'll see you at the conference in about 4 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.